Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Jocelyn Williamson, and we're diving into Unit 2 for the Principles of Marketing. Everyone should be seeing their discussion board grades and their IntelliPath grades posted. Do make note of anything I may have said if you didn't receive full credit on the discussion board. Most likely that was because you did not necessarily complete comments to other students. I think that was the one thing I saw people missing. So note that you do have to comment to at least 2 other students as well as have your main post. IntelliPath. As you work on IntelliPath, you really want to focus on the yellow nodes before you get, and red before you get started on green or light green. Excuse me, I need a drink of water. That is really quite important to do. And I want to double check to make sure that my audio is set up properly. Yes, we are using the correct microphone. All right, wonderful. Okay, so that's a quick reminder. You can revise IntelliPath, and you will be seeing revisions coming through in the next few days where I'll go back into Unit 1 and suggest revisions. This week you have IntelliPath, and you have a discussion board, and you have an individual project due. For this particular week, you only need to turn in 2 paragraphs, not more than that, 2 paragraphs. That is what you need to submit. To begin to write your 2 paragraphs, think of a global company. Just think of any large, massive company that you could possibly imagine. It can be food. It can be McDonald's or Taco Bell or Burger King or Panera or Starbucks. It can be any of that. It can be clothing. It could be, Adidas, Supreme brand. It could be any global company that is focused on selling to consumers. The only thing you should not be doing is focusing on a company that only sells to businesses. And so you're going to find a global company, and you're going to confirm that it is it is listed on the Dun and Bradstreet site, and that is located in the company or the assignment description. So if you go to the assignment itself and you scroll down to the assignment, you should be seeing that on your page. You click on course project. You then can see in the details right here, Dun and Bradstreet. So think of a company, you have it in your mind, you click on this link, a new window will open. And from there, you can search, and you could type in, for example, Toyota. And there are lots of Toyota companies to select. You might want to select Toyota Corporation North America, just to make it easier. And from there, you will see some information listed. So Toyota Motor North America, that'll just make it easier. And you will see that this particular website provides you a bunch of information about where their headquarters are, and a little bit of information, generally speaking, okay? This is just a starting point. You just confirm that whatever company you have is listed here. If you use any of the information on the Dun & Bradstreet site, wonderful. If you don't, that's fine too. Just confirm it. All you're doing for this first paper is you're going to have 1 paragraph introducing the business. What do they do, generally speaking? You want to briefly talk about, in 4 to 6 sentences, what do they sell? Where are they located? Just broad strokes, very basic information. And I will be sending out a sample template, not text, but sample for the format. I'll be sending that out to you. And you're just going to briefly introduce the company and describe the type of business that they're in. You're going to have a second paragraph. This second paragraph is going to talk about something in the environment that is impacting their business. Now, what does that mean? Imagine that you own a business, let's say McDonald's, and McDonald's, may decide that they want to allow people to order McDonald's food from their phone on an app. So that would be an example of technology changing the way they do business, right? Because people can now order on an app. That changes the way they do business. Let's say that you are going to run promotions and have promotions and coupons online. That is technology changing the way you promote your business. Another example would be dealing with changes in the supply chain, because we've seen shortages of different types of products, whether it be food or paper or other products. We can say that the supply chain and what's going on, for example, with what happened with the coronavirus affecting supply chains, impacted the business. So you're going to write 4 to 6 sentences talking about something outside the company's control. They have no control over this whatsoever. None. Whatever this thing is, could be technology, could be the economy, right? Could be a recession. It could be talking about the coronavirus and how it affected the supply chain. You could be talking about the legality of doing certain things may change the way you do business. Moving into a new country and having cultural or language problems. When you enter that new country, you have to make changes, right? You don't want the instructions for a product to be in a different language. So any one of these things is fine. So you're just going to write a 1-paragraph discussion about, about one of these things and how it's impacting the business. That is what is due this week. You should have a cover page, you should have a reference page, and you should have 2 paragraphs. That's it. If you find that this is just way too much stress, you just are not comfortable at all even thinking about it, then you need to go to Smart Thinking Tutoring, which you go there by going to the top of the page. You click on Learning Center and Tutoring, and you go to Tutoring and Smart Thinking Services. That's what you need to do if you really are going to need some help with things. They can also help with working with your format and stuff like that. Again, we're talking about 8 sentences. If nothing else, by the end of the week, just have something to me. I will allow you to revise it, but you need to turn something in. And it's extremely important that you get started with this project and just be proactive. And if it means that you're going to write 4 sentences just describing the company in general, that's fine. The other thing I want to remind you about this 2-paragraph is you need to include at least 1 reference, just 1. If you have more, great. I love references, but have at least 1 reference. The course room, the textbook, the Dun & Bradstreet website, the company website, any one of those is a great reference to list. So that's the entire paper. You got your 1 reference, you have your 8 sentences or more, and you have your cover page, your reference page, but really have that reference and those 2 paragraphs. That's going to be the real meat of this particular assignment. And I want to strongly encourage you just do it. Do not agonize, just do it. And with that note, I will say in week 3, you're going to add to that paper and you're going to add 2 more paragraphs about product and price. In week 4, you're going to be adding a couple more paragraphs. That's it. And I don't want to agonize over weeks 3 and 4. For week 2, you're just going to have those 2 paragraphs that you're dealing with for the individual project. Okay. So to briefly discuss format. Do not agonize over this. I understand this is new for many of you, but I do want to give you some of the basics. When you look at a general paper, you have your running header at the top, you have your page number. Let me see if I can get a pointer that might make it easier. So you have a running header, you have a page number, and then you have the title of the paper, which can just be the company name if you want, your name, and American Intercontinental. That is the cover page. Nothing more, nothing less. Very simple approach. For the paper itself, on a regular paper, you would have that running header, which I'm circling right up here. You would have a page number. Your text should be double spaced. This is very important. Double space your papers and have 1-inch margins all the way around. Again, do not hesitate to submit a paper that is not, that may be formatted incorrectly. I will allow you to revise it. It is better for you to turn in a paper. Let me make some, suggestions for you, and then you can resubmit it. That will allow you to get started on this assignment, get credit for this assignment, and be able to make revisions, and you can improve your grade as you go, but you have to submit to do that. On the format, on the reference page, the word references is centered at the top of the page. It looks like all of these are sticking around. Let me erase some of these. I didn't realize the annotation went around along with me, so let me get rid of those. All right, so you have the word references here in the center. You list your references alphabetically. You're going to tab in the second line. These are all the way over. The very first top line of each reference is all the way to that 1-inch margin. So that is the paper. Do not hesitate to submit something that is not perfect. That's fine. It's better to submit something than to submit nothing at all. Okay, enough about the paper. The discussion board for this week is asking you to choose a company and describe target marketing and describe at least 2 segmentation criteria that they are using or could use. Example, don't use this example on the discussion board. This is an example so that you understand. AirPods, and I talked about this last time. AirPods can be used to be sold to teenagers. It could be sold to millennials who are commuting to work, and AirPods can be sold to baby boomers who want to exercise. Those are very specific groups. You know their age, and you know something about them as far as hobbies or what's going on. So you have the commuting workers, perhaps you have the teenagers who don't want to listen to adults, and you have the baby boomers who want to exercise. And by having that target market, you can then focus your advertising, right? You can have the appropriate music, the appropriate people pictured. You can have activities that show the product, in this case, AirPods, being used, and it would be done in such a way as to really focus on that target market demographic. So that's what the discussion board is this week. And don't forget to comment to at least 2 other students. All right, so today I'm going to talk about the consumer market and talk about some of the major factors that influence consumer buying behavior, and trying to understand how consumers go about making their decisions, as well as how consumers decide whether or not to purchase products that are brand new to the market. We also want to think about business markets and how they're a little different than just that regular consumer buyer. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. All right, so target marketing. Target marketing is really trying to understand consumer behavior. Harley Davidson is a company that has really been very effective with tying into the emotions and motivations that connect to people. I personally don't ride, but I know people who do, and they apparently feel strongly about the particular brand of bicycle. And if you were to ask Harley and go to their website, and if you can read about them as a case study of great target marketing, they would tell you they don't just sell motorcycles, they sell freedom, independence, power, and authenticity. Whether or not you believe that is something else, but that's what they tell you they're selling. And that really helps to focus how they market to people. We know that consumer purchases are strongly influenced by cultural, social, personal, and psychological characteristics. For the most part, as a marketer, we cannot control any of these factors, but we need to take them into account. We need to think about them to try to make the most out of everything that we know about our consumers. We want to use that information to design the most effective marketing program. So for example, AT&T, to try to raise perceptions as an innovative and preferred brand to Asian American youth, they identified key influencers in their tech market, and they created this kind of crowdsourced boy meets girl web series called Away We Happened. And this was effective. They were able to target specific parts of the United States. They ran promotions for this particular program, and they brought in new customers. It was an effective process. And so understanding that, identifying the target market, and then from there, you can design a more effective messaging program. As I mentioned, consumers are influenced by social factors. Groups, for example, have a direct influence into which, there are groups that people belong to, membership groups. There are reference groups that are kind of an indirect or direct form of comparison. And this can help to form how a person's attitude or behavior about products. There's also aspirational groups. I want to belong to this group, therefore. Word of mouth means that, personal recommendations of friends, associates, other consumers do have an influence on consumer behavior. So rather than leaving it to chance, marketers can help to create positive conversations about their brands. For example, they might use an opinion leader, someone within a reference group who, because of special skills, knowledge, personality, other characteristics, they're going to exert a kind of social influence on others. Opinion leaders are also called influentials. They're called leading adopters. And buzz marketing involves enlisting or even creating opinion leaders to be brand ambassadors who spread the word about a company's products. Online social networks, I'm confident you know all about those, but these are online communities where people socialize, exchange information, and a lot of opinions, not to mention reviews. So being where the consumer is makes a lot of sense. Family members play a big role. Studies have shown, for example, that for something like a PlayStation or an Xbox, if there is a teenager in the home, the teenager is usually the deciding factor for buying a game station. They don't make the purchase because they don't have the money, but they're making a strong influence, particularly as if the family is going to buy one anyway, that person will make perhaps a big difference on which system is purchased. So appealing to them can make a big difference. And also that impacts, the role and status that people have within their families, but also within their work situations. People tend to choose products appropriate to their role and status that they have. A buyer's decision is also influenced by the personal characteristics. What's their job? Are they working in, let's say medicine? They may have products that, and computers, for example, laptops that are specifically for medical offices. So if you can identify a group that may have an above average interest in your product, great. Bring them in, target them. They may want your product. Tastes in food, clothing, furniture, recreation. All of this is very age related to some extent. Well, not entirely, but in part. So what we purchase when we are 21 may indeed be very different than what we're purchasing when we're 41. Buying is shaped by kids. Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? And that's something to consider. What is the economic situation? Can they afford products? Again, if they can't afford your product, they're not going to be doing that. In other words, purchasing it. Lifestyle refers to activities, interests, and opinions. It's called AIO, activities, interests, opinions. The lifestyle concept can help marketers understand changing consumer values and how they change their behavior. And then, of course, personality and self-concept. How does a person view themselves? An example of some of this, KitchenAid. They would say they sell more than just high performance kitchen appliances. They sell an entire cooking and entertainment lifestyle. They coined the word kitchen enthusiasts. And they have a blog, Facebook page, Pinterest boards, recipes, cooking challenges, tips, tricks, techniques, coverage. And they work really hard to create a community of people interested in cooking. When we think about motive, and now we're getting into what sort of psychological factors impact whether or not we make a purchase, right? So a motive or drive is a need that is sufficiently pressing to push me to go seek satisfaction. And companies hire all these people. They hire psychologists, they hire anthropologists, they hire all these social scientists to carry out motivation research. Companies want to understand, how do you make that purchase? Some of the terms that we use when we think about this is perception. So how do people select, organize, interpret information to create a meaningful picture of the world? For example, selective distortion. This means that there is a tendency of people to interpret information in a way that will support what they already believe. So that means if I hear something, let's say I like coffee, because I do, I hear something about coffee, I may only, and it may be about coffee in general, I'm going to be listening for the good points. I will selectively retain only the good points about this product, and I selectively retain brands that support what I think about the world and about coffee, for example. That's selective retention. Learning is, changes in an individual's behavior coming from experience. So as I experience things or experience a product, experience a service, I'm going to have a positive or negative feeling about it. And a belief is what I have about a product or service, right? What do I think about it? And how does that affect my choices? An example of trying to address that, would be what you're seeing here on this slide with V8. They tried to address the negative concepts related to vegetable juice and people who don't like to have vegetables. And V8's trying to take a slightly different twist on that. And they're trying to address a negative belief that people might have about vegetables, which I think is too bad. Some of the main bases of segmentation, as I mentioned, could be geographic, demographic, behavioral, and psychographic. And you can see examples of each of these underneath down here. Different criteria that we look at. So again, this is very specific for an online or digital consideration of criteria. So geographic could be what countries, what states, what cities do they live in? what demographic could age, role in the family, education, income. Psychographic, again, has to do with lifestyle or perhaps personality. Are they very logical? Are they very emotional? And what is their purchasing behavior online? There's a lot of different things to consider when you think about whether or not they're an influencer, whether or not they get easily influenced. Are they very loyal? All of these are questions that we may very well consider as we, work on our marketing campaign and understanding it. Here's an example of a target market where you see red is for both of them. Oops, sorry about that. Blue is for males, pink is for people who identify as female. And we see, a variety of things that are unique to either identified gender or for both. And so if you're going to focus on if you are Urban Outfitters and you're trying to focus on the male consumer, you can see different types of information here, which is, and obviously this is for England because they talk about going out with my mates, although it could be Australia, listening to music, going to parties, and watching films. Based on that, and they're 22. So those are the things that are unique. From there, we are going to probably try to focus on how do we design an ad to appeal to that particular audience if we're not concerned about the other types of consumers. That would be an example. Here's another example. This is information that a company may have. This is their background here at the top. They're an entry-level consultant, recently started working with a company. They make $35,000 to $75,000, urban 20 to 24. They like to be healthy, technologically savvy, and they happen to like Chipotle. Now, how do we decide what to put on these? This is the ideal center target consumer. So we take a look at who we're trying to target, and we try to come up with the most average, centered, basic variation of that. And from there, we can build the campaign. And so that's what we're doing with this sorts of information. We then try to design an advertisement, we design a promotion, we design our website to reflect this target consumer and what they will respond to. Consumer buying behavior is the buying behavior of final consumers who are the individuals and households that buy goods. So the people that buy, when we talk about B2C, we're talking about businesses selling to consumers and trying to understand the consumer market. Generally speaking, there is a general pattern of behavior for consumers when they make purchases. And you see this purchasing process kind of beginning to get outlined here on this slide. The environment is what the company controls here, which is I want to draw on here, so just give me 1 second. This right here, marketing stimuli, and I'm circling it, it says product, price, promotion, place. This is what I control as the company. I control this. Nobody else does. This is 100% my business has this under control. Over here, economic, technological, social, cultural, that's what you're writing about in your paper this week. These are the things in the environment that the company has no control over. I know they're happening. I probably have to change what I'm doing to respond to it, but I can't control it. And that's what you're going to be writing one paragraph about. Now, what happens is you create your product, your marketing, and everything else. This is all outside my control. I start here, but then the consumer gets all my marketing information. Now, inside their mind, we call it a black box. We don't know what's going on inside their mind. We don't know what their characteristics are. We don't know what drives them to make a purchase. We can make some guesses based on whether or not they made a purchase, but we don't actually know. And from there, go to the next slide. we know that these things, culture, subculture, social class, all play a role. And we want to be able to understand, to see, is there a particular subculture that is very interested in our product? If so, for example, how do we reach them? One person who wrote about this was Abraham Maslow, and he sought to, he was really trying to explain why people are driven by a particular need at a particular time. Why does one person spend a lot of time and energy on personal safety and another on gaining the esteem of others? Maslow said that human needs are arranged in a hierarchy from most pressing at the bottom to least pressing at the top, and that they include physiological needs, safety needs, social needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. So if you think about esteem, for example, Dove chocolates, if you've ever had a Dove chocolate, which is chocolate, so it should be down at the bottom, right? We're talking about hunger. But in reality, if you open up a Dove chocolate, it'll have some little quote that says, have the best day ever, or be all you can be, or some other little quote. And what they're trying to do is appeal to people based on esteem. So companies use Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they use different tools to get people to purchase their products. Insurance companies are going to be focusing on safety, and they're going to be saying, you really need to be concerned about safety to try to get people to purchase their products. So the buying decision process is like this. I recognize I have a need if I'm a consumer. Maybe I get hungry and suddenly I want to eat. Or maybe I'm driving and I see a billboard and it shows a beautiful beach and I think, oh, I need a vacation. And so that's something external that has triggered me to have a need. I then seek information, right? Whether I go and ask people, where did they take a vacation? Or I may have my own experiences, or I may do research, but I am going to seek some sort of information. It might be in my mind. So for example, I'm hungry. I think to myself, what's available in my refrigerator? Oh, wow, I don't have anything in my refrigerator, so I need to go out. What restaurants are quick and close? So you go through this process where you are seeking the information, you then evaluate your choices, and you decide if you're going to purchase or not. Finally, you have post-purchase behavior, which is, are you happy or unhappy? Companies really want you to be happy, and that should be your goal as a marketer. You want post-purchase expectations to be excellent. And what you do is you need to meet and establish realistic expectations. A realistic expectation would be, I'm going to provide a good hot burger quick if you're McDonald's. And you do it. And you do it over and over and over again. And your customer service is friendly as they do it, and people are happy. If you said, I have the best burger ever, people are going to be unhappy, and they may not necessarily be satisfied, because while McDonald's is a lot of things, they don't provide every topping that you could ever imagine. They don't have variations that are as great as other burger places. So they need to set realistic expectations and then just do a little bit better than what you say you're going to do. Now, with new products, you've got a new challenge, which is people have to be aware of your product and they have to have an interest in your product. And so, for example, if you think about an Oculus headset has been around now for a while. A fair number of people have them and tried them, but a lot of people haven't yet. And so if they don't know what you can do with it, then your marketing and your advertising is going to be focused on letting the consumer know you're aware. Letting the consumer know that your product exists. Sorry. So you want them to know, look, this product exists, try it out. And then you have to really try to pique their interest so that they will go into trying it and possibly adopting that product. This is very different than, for example, Taco Bell. I would argue everybody in this class knows Taco Bell. They're not going to be surprised about what Taco Bell is serving. So they don't need to create awareness that the product exists, and they don't have to get people just to try it and evaluate it. They need to actually get people to say that they're going to choose Taco Bell today. And they may do that through, buy one, get one on tacos or things like that. But they don't need to build awareness. They don't need to get people to try it for the first time. That's very different than something like an Oculus headset that a lot of people haven't tried yet. What we know is that for new products that are first ever to the market, in general, if you were to take 100 people, 2.5% of them want to try new products no matter what. They're just excited about trying out a new product. 13.5% of people are early adopters, 34% are early mainstream, 34% are late mainstream, and 16% probably still have a VHS player at home and haven't even moved into any sort of online streaming or other forms of viewing. So the point being is, if you only have, if you know you have 100 consumers in your target market, there's 100 people that will buy your product. If you have sold to 75 of them, you probably can stop pushing the product quite so much, because the lagging adopters may never try your product. And that's something to keep in mind. When we think about how do people try new products, there are several characteristics that you see listed on this slide that really encourage people to try new things. Relative advantage. Is it superior to other products? Is it really awesome? Is it compatible to how we live or the experiences of the consumer? Is it very complex to use? When computers first came out, whoa, they were super complex. People had no idea. They had no point of reference. They were not willing to try the products. So as a result, it took a long time for computers to start taking off. Another thing to consider, is it divisible? Cookies are divisible. I can give you a sample of a cookie. I cannot give you a sample of a computer. You can try it, but I can't give you a sample to take away. Final thing is, how well can I communicate the advantage of this product? If it's really hard to communicate, it takes a longer time for people to try out this new product. Now, business buyers are a bit different. They have, business buying refers to the buying behavior of organizations that buy goods and services for use in the production of other services and goods that are sold, rent, supplied to others, right? And so businesses have to engage business customers and build profitable relationships with them, and that is their goal. And there are different alternatives and choices out there for companies to do business. So the business market is large. It involves actually more dollars and items than consumer markets. Business markets differ from consumer markets in terms of the market structure, the sophistication of the people buying, and the types of decisions made, because it's a little more complex. And I want to give an example of this. So first of all, I'll go through these stages. You have, if you remember, it was a very simple process for the consumers, but for businesses, they're going to have their need or their problem recognition, but they typically write a very complex or thorough explanation of what they're looking for. So a general description is going to be detailed. They're going to then have specifications for the products they're purchasing. They're going to look at the different suppliers, and they're going to ask those suppliers to give them a proposal. What's the best you can do? Give me your offer. They then select one, they put in the order, and they will have a performance review. And this is done by professional staff that knows what they're doing. This is not the consumer who decided to impulse buy an extra pair of shoes. This is somebody who purchases things for a living. So it is a more complex process and higher quality of sales is expected. So in conclusion, the consumer market is all the individuals and households that buy or acquire goods and services for personal consumption. And we talked about how consumers have a black box that we don't know quite what's going in there, but we have the product, price, promotion, and place. Those things as a company we control. Then we have everything going on in the environment, the economy, the climate, the technology changes, the legal changes, all of those changes. Those things combine on either side of the consumer, and they make a decision to purchase or not. And we as a company want to understand, how do I offer the best product, price, promotion, place so that the consumer buys from me? And I do that in part by understanding the consumer, and I understand what's going on in the environment. And consumers are very, so I talked about different things that affect consumers. I also talked about how new products take a little bit of extra work, and business buying and business marketing is a slightly different, it's a similar but slightly different process, because the buyers in the business market are definitely more educated and more professional and require more paperwork when you're trying to sell to them. And that is the end of my presentation for today. Hopefully this will get you started on your unit 2. If you're having questions or concerns, send me a message and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And I hope you're having a good day. Thank you.